All over the world, metropolises have appeared, which resulted in a lot of opportunities for its inhabitants. The multinationals have been mainly ruled by men, but throughout the last decade, the working environment has changed, whereas more and more women are joining important positions. Even though the number of women in important positions has increased, there is still an inequality on the work floor. In what ways can we identify the social issue in the Netherlands? And in what ways are women being treated different during their career? A business culture is a relationship between everyone involved in the company. One of the most important factors that define the success of a company is all the values, norms, and aims that are shared within the organization. The employees play an important role in contributing in the performance of a company. The way a company is constructed is of great importance to its performance, especially in the composition of the executive functions. Research has shown that an equal amount of men and women on the work floor creates optimal results in decision-making, thus the growth and development of a company. Even though it's proven that this way of working gives the best results, a majority of the companies still consist of more men in management functions.
The careers of women and men differ. We can say that there is a career gap between men and women. The English word careers covers both any chronological sequence of jobs and labor market position, and arising on a vertical job ladder in the same company or in different companies, characterized by an increase in salary, authority, and/or status position. The difference that exists between men and women in terms of payment for work that is performed is also part of the career gap. In our society, it is the case that men are paid more than women when performing the same work. The pay gap between men and women is also known as the gender pay gap. This applies both to the employees in the private sector and to the employees in the public sector. However, the difference in payment in the business sector is larger than in the government. In 2008, the gender pay gap in the government was 16%. In the business sector, it was 22%. In 2014, the gender pay gap between men and women in the public sector had fallen to 10%, in the private sector to 20%. The unadjusted pay gap is steadily decreasing. In 2014, the average hourly wage for men in the government was 26 euros. For women, the average hourly wage was 24 euros. In the private sector, the average wage is lower and the wage difference higher than in the public sector. Men in the business sector earn an average of 21 euros per hour in 2014 and women 70 euros per hour. These results did not take into account different background characteristics of men and women in the labor market.
When these differences in background characteristics of men and women on the labor market are taken into account, this results in a corrected gender pay gap. This gives a more representative picture of the actual gender pay gap. In practice, the level of wages is determined by a complex combination of a variety of factors, such as work experience, level of education of the employee, and the sector in which a person works. A part of the gender pay gap remains when these factors are taken into account. The effects of characteristics of employees, employers, and job characteristics are taken into the equation. The characteristics of the employee are taken into consideration by looking at the gender, age, origin, education, including level and direction, work experience, disability, household situation, and income of the partner. The sector, number of employees, percentage of women, profitability, and location regions are taken into account when looking at the characteristics of an employer. The job characteristics include professional level, type of contract, either full-time or part-time, and the type of employment relationship. Taking into consideration all factors that may influence wages, there should not be a remaining pay gap when there is equal treatment of women and men in employment. However, there remains an unacceptable and inexplicable pay gap between men and women. Taking into account the background characteristics, women still earned 7% less than men in the public sector in 2008. By 2014, this has fallen to 5%. In the business sector, the difference decreased from 9 to 7% in this period. After correction, there remains a pay gap of 5% in the government and 7% in the business sector. This corrected pay gap says something about the pay gap between men and women, which is comparable in terms of background characteristics. It is therefore an indication of the existence of unequal pay for equal work.
Women are not only being disadvantaged in terms of salary, women are also less likely to benefit from extra benefits, such as prestige allowances, daily and subsistence allowances, bonuses, and double holiday pays. Men also have more freedom of choice when it comes to their salary. More often than women, they enjoy flexible pay in which the employee can, to some extent, decide how he is paid. Now we're going to have a look at the career itself. For women, making career is more difficult and often takes much more time than for men. Various studies have shown that women have less chance of being promoted and find it more difficult to move on to top positions in companies. This is also called the glass ceiling. Women have to wait longer for promotions to management positions than men. Women who do move on to higher positions are often concentrated in professional positions that are linked to a lot of expertise but not to authority. Women are therefore less likely to have a job in which authority or power can be practiced. Research in the United Kingdom shows that there are no differences in promotion opportunities, but that women are more likely to be dismissed and that in case of promotion, their wages increase less than men. Women remain stuck in the lower wage categories. The career leaps of men are more rewarded than promotions of women. The percentage of women in management positions is increasing. The proportion of female managers in the business sector increased by 1% in 2014, but men still occupy a management position proportionally more often than women. In the business world, almost 1 in 3 managerial positions is held by women. In government, the share is slightly higher at 36%. In the 500 largest companies of the Netherlands, only 5.6% of the top positions are occupied by women. Gender stratification is clearly visible. The supporting jobs are mainly occupied by women, who thus support the higher positions occupied by men. In each area of activity, the chance of a woman having a particular job becomes smaller as the income and prestige of the job in question increases.